Laura Loomer lost her primary. But why does she lose? And what does this mean moving forward? Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is another Declaration of Truth from your host, Terry A. Hurlbut. Yes, in the only sour note in the primaries held on August the 23rd, Laura Loomer lost her bid to oust Representative Daniel Webster, the rhino from Florida's 11th U.S. Congressional District. She has not conceded at the election at this time. What exactly she will do next, she's not telling. But the returns on the Florida District 11 primary and the wider context do raise legitimate questions. On the other hand, conservative candidates like Laura Loomer should also ask themselves how to change people's minds at large scale. This applies equally to rank-and-file Republican establishment loyalists as to anyone who habitually votes absentee or by mail. Before we get into details, I do want to shout out to the prime sponsor of this channel, which is Conservative News and Views, link in the description. Be sure to check out the awesome CNAV Store. Scroll down near the bottom for that link. Lots of great merchandise there, including this t-shirt that I have chosen for today, which reads, Rhino Hunting. Yes, I chose that because Daniel Webster has a reputation as a rhino. No, he didn't vote to impeach President Trump. He was absent for that vote. And that seems to be a habit of his. And I'll have more to say about that later. But first, the election returns. These come to me from Decision Desk headquarters. I have a link to them in the description. First, overall, with nearly every precinct in and 85,153 votes counted, we have Daniel Webster, the incumbent, at 51.05% of the vote, Laura Loomer with 44.17%, and Gabriel Soriano with 4.78%. His vote total margin, that Webster's vote total margin was just under 5,800 votes. Now we move county by county, and each county has its own story. First, Lake County, which is Daniel Webster's home base. In fact, he hails from Claremont, which is the seat of Lake County. Well, he won there, barely, with just over 50% of the vote to Laura Loomer's 45.25%. The vote difference is actually a little over 1,300 votes in that county. Now, never mind Gabriel Soriano, he doesn't matter. So, where did Daniel Webster get his big margin of victory? From Orange County, or parts of it. He carried those parts with 60.59% of the vote to 33.91% for Loomer, with a vote total difference of more than 6,100 votes. In Polk County, Webster and Loomer were tied, with only 28 votes separating them. Now, Sumter County, which is the big community called The Villages, is very interesting. Loomer took The Villages with 50.23% to 45.38% for Daniel Webster. The vote total margin there was 1,600. So as you can see, Daniel Webster got his big margin in Orange County. Democrat country, actually. He also took his own home base, but by less than the margin by which Laura Loomer beat him in The Villages. Now, as interesting as all that is, the timing on when those votes came in and for whom is even more interesting. I have a link in the description to a tweet by vdare.com showing a graph of votes totaled as a function of time of night, beginning at 1900, which means 7 o'clock in the evening when the polls closed. Villages time when the polls closed. I also have that graphic to show you right here. Now, watch closely. We have Webster in blue, Loomer in red, and Gabriel Soriano also had an American First message, but not much of a campaign, and no name reco in green. Now look at this. Yes, Webster had an early lead. Sorry about that. Webster had an early lead, and then then at 7:18, Laura Loomer took it away from him. He got it back at 7:31. He held it at 7:35, and then he lost it again at 7:37. The two graphs seem to overlap, but if you click through to the VDare tweet, download the graph, and zoom in maybe 200% or more, you can see that Laura Loomer was ahead. But at 7:50, the graph stayed perfectly flat for 3 minutes. At 8:05, we have more votes come in, and Loomer is still ahead, slightly but surely. And then, Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, look at what happened to the vote totals at 8:10 p.m. Laura Loomer gets some extra, but Daniel Webster suddenly breaks out to where he ended up with nearly all the precincts in. Now, what was that all about? Well, Peter Brimelow at VDare has one theory. He thinks the mail-in ballots came in at 8:10, and that did it. Now, after the Virginia governor's race in the Virginia pre-midterm of 2021, I did a chi-square analysis of overall returns and mail-in ballot returns. I can tell you, mail-in ballots skew left. I'll have more to say about that later. Now, anyway, Laura Loomer herself has another much darker theory. I have a link in the description to her post-election statement, and I'm going to quote one paragraph from it right now. That's directly relevant. Quote, "As you all saw last night, the Laura Loomer for Congress campaign had the nation on its heels because the entire night I was ahead of Daniel Webster, beating him in the election. Then there was a very strange long pause in the counting of votes when I was still ahead of Daniel Webster. And then all of a sudden a drastic shift in numbers at the 11th hour occurred after the supervisor of elections websites crashed while I was ahead in votes," unquote Laura Loomer. Now, remember I told you about the graphs flattening for 3 minutes beginning at 7:50 p.m.? That's what she's talking about, more than likely. And then, boom, the spike. Now then, let's put all this into a wider context so that you can see why Laura Loomer is not conceding the race. Now, I'm not even going to mention by name the mainstream media organs. They're all out there saying that Laura Loomer is just being a troll. But is she? Or does she have some good questions to raise? Now, first of all, I can't infer with complete confidence whether the demographics of District 11 are the same today as they were 2 years ago. The current District 11 has changed since the census. It has lost the original Florida West Coast portion and picked up some of Democrat country, especially in Orange County, which is Orlando and Kissimmee St. Cloud, you know, Disney, Universal, SeaWorld. Despite this, 3 separate political prognosticators rate the district solid Republican. I don't believe it. Likely Republican is as strong as I'm going to go. Now, did Democrats gimmick the Republican primary in any way? Someone started a rumor to the effect that they supported Loomer, thinking that she would be easier to beat, because someone in the New Yorker said, well, that's what they did in Pennsylvania and in Michigan. And by the way, that's no mere allegation. The author of the New Yorker piece was lamenting that the Democrats did that. He thinks they set themselves up for worse problems because the candidates not only won their primaries, but just might win their generals. But I digress. The point is that no one sees any evidence that they did anything like that in Florida. In fact, commentator Chris Hayes flatly denies that. I have a link in the description to his tweet at 7:54 p.m. saying that we're looking at, and I quote, sheer base voter preference in action, unquote. And that sheer base voter preference nearly put Laura Loomer over the top, which is the more remarkable because almost every social media platform disallowed her. She has accounts on Gab.com, Telegram.org, and Getter.com, and nowhere else. And still, she came within less than 6,000 votes of winning. I have a few more things to say about the district's history and more perspective on the results. But first, I want to shout out to a sponsor who can really help you through the economic storms to come. That sponsor is oursilverlines.com. Do you feel like you're working harder for your money just to get by, you're not alone. The fluctuating economy, employment issues, unexpected changes in life have left many families struggling over the past few years. Now, collecting gold and silver can help shield you against many of these challenges. But if you're like me many years ago, you don't know where or how to start. Our Silver Lines helps by connecting you with thousands of members who are learning the secrets to creating and protecting true wealth by collecting precious metals. Now, whether you just want to collect rare and unique coins or take advantage of the business opportunities that this company provides, they can help you learn to live an exceptional life. Visit oursilverlines.com to learn how you can build a legacy for your future. Now, back to District 11 in Florida. That old district switched from Democrat to Republican after the 2010 census. Republican presidential candidates carried the district with anywhere from 65 to 70% of the vote. Again, the district has changed again, so I place little confidence in whether the new District 11 will perform as the old one did. Now, I want to get one thing straight. Gabriel Soriano did not spoil the America First vote. Not for Laura Loomer, he didn't. He couldn't have, because Daniel Webster in unofficial returns has a clear majority. So, no spoilers. Loomer doesn't even talk about Soriano at all. Instead, she concentrates on Daniel Webster's record and his relatively lacking campaign. She says he was the 7th most absent member of the House and missed more than 15% of all the votes taken. He's never denied that, by the way. Now, was he absent by reason of his health? Or did he miss some votes merely to stay off the record, like that second impeachment vote? As for campaigning, well, Peter Brimelow back at VDare writes this, and again I quote, "Driving into FL 11 yesterday, we were amazed by the vast number of Loomer for Congress signs. We only saw one Webster sign, I think outside his headquarters. As later by the size and enthusiasm of the crowd at her election watch party." Unquote, Peter Brimelow. And on the other hand, Donald Trump did not endorse Laura Loomer in this primary. Now, why didn't he? Who might have advised him not to? We don't know. We also hear from Dan Constant, the head of the Congressional Leadership Fund. By his word, he supported Daniel Webster with turnout calls for which his organization budgeted $50,000. I have a link in the description to his tweet saying just that. So why did Mr. Constant do that? Well, he apparently won't say. Add to it, though, school elections also took place, and school boards in 13 districts switched from being woke to being anti-woke. One of these was Polk County. So how did Webster still come out just barely, just 28 votes ahead there? Why didn't Laura Loomer blow him away in Polk County? And then again, I'm sure the Webster people are going to ask why Governor DeSantis endorsed school board candidates won in Polk County if any of us think that there are any mucky shines going on in that congressional primary. Well, that's neither here nor there. But the $1,024,000 question is, what is Laura Loomer going to do next? Well, maybe you can't expect anyone planning to contest an election or file any other kind of lawsuit to discuss plans in advance. So when Laura Loomer won't say exactly what she will do to change this result, that should surprise no one. And I'm not going to speculate, and I wouldn't advise you to either. But just remember this, in Polk County, except for Polk County, all the margins of victory were well over 1,000, amounted to 4% or more of the vote. Now, she might get recounts, but that could be an expensive proposition. The larger question for her and others in her position to answer is how to change the minds of voters who likely have voted with a certain mindset for 40 years. Her positions on the issues, positions I certainly share, might strike elderly Republican voters as too radical. Well, that might apply especially to any voter who feels too debilitated to vote in person. Now, so such a voter is going to vote by mail. And I already told you, mail-in ballots skew left. Now, could the same attitude of preferring to send in a vote by in the mail also include preferring the status quo to someone saying it's time for significant changes? Intriguing, except for one thing. How do you explain Laura Loomer taking the villages? They have a median age of 68.3 years, the oldest of any county in America. And these are the voters who preferred Laura Loomer by nearly 5%. So don't say that old people are too set in their ways to listen to a perky young lady with new ideas. In the villages, many of them did. Now, the Laura Loomer Telegram account has been very active today. Again, she said nothing specific about her next steps, but more generally she promises simply to wear Daniel Webster down physically. She cites several indicators of poor health, which again could explain his absenteeism in large part. I quote, "His health is drastically failing, he is demented, looks ill, he can barely speak, and he wears a life alert." So she has set a goal to have him simply resign. Sorry, I'm doing a podcast here, and can it wait? Oh, all right, lay it on me. How's that? What? You're kidding! You're not kidding? Whiskey Tango Foxtrot! Ladies and gentlemen, you are not going to believe this. Laura Loomer just broke the news on Telegram. What time is it? 12:38 p.m. Oh, this is too good. I've got to leave a link for this in the description. Ladies and gentlemen, what I'm about to share with you comes straight from Laura Loomer. No one else has this. Daniel Webster will resign after midterms. Apparently, he's going to endorse someone for a special election to take place next springtime. Laura Loomer is hopping mad that apparently no primary will take place ahead of that special election. Now, here he is looking to fight an election contest that will be as grueling as Laura Loomer can make it, and it turns out he's going to resign after midterms. Well, what can we say? The contest in Florida's District 11, at least until the next census, is going to be between two kinds of Republican. Daniel Webster represents the old, Laura Loomer the new. But she's going to have to do more than expose what she calls or suspects to be the corruption in the Republican establishment. That establishment still has an extensive base of support, and she needs to undermine it if it takes years. Link in the description of the article, to the returns, to the 3 tweets I mentioned about the result, to Laura Loomer's statement, and I promise you a link to her breaking bulletin and telegram, and the conservative news and views. I've also left links to the awesome CNAV Store and to oursilverlines.com, as I also mentioned. If you like what you've heard, you can like this video and click the bell icon too, because that'll notify you when another one's coming out. And on the end screen, I'm going to leave a subscribe link and a link at least to one other video I've done about rhino hunting. This is Terry A. Hurlbut, delivering another declaration of truth and reminding you to let the truth set you free.